kicked out sick wife with just $12 and a trash bag. Now he wants to live in her $750,000 home as a janitor. Look at you, sick, useless, and nothing but a burden. Take this trash bag and $12. It's more than you deserve. Get out of my house. Those were the heartless words of the man who vowed to love her in sickness and in health. Weak and abandoned, she staggered into the streets with nothing but her pain and a bag of rags. He thought he had destroyed her, mocked her illness, and ended her story. But life has a way of flipping the script, because the same woman he cast out with $12 to her name now owns a home worth $750,000, and the man who mocked her is the one begging to live under her roof as a janitor. Sometimes the ones you trample rise in ways you can never imagine. Sometimes the burden you cast away becomes the very person who holds your future. This is the story of a woman who was humiliated, discarded, and left for dead until life handed her the sweetest revenge. And today it is being retold by me. Hello family, welcome back. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please, subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten and stories that deserve to be heard. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from and how this touched you. Claire Hayes sat on the couch, her body trembling from fever. Her skin was pale, her lips dry, and she clutched her chest as a sharp pain rippled through. She had been sick for months, her body failing, but the worst pain wasn't her illness. It was the look in her husband's eyes. David stood over her, his face twisted with contempt. Once he had been charming, full of sweet words and warm promises, but now he looked at her like she was garbage. You're sick, useless, and worthless, he spat, his voice echoing off the modest suburban walls. You can't cook, you can't clean, you can't even take care of yourself. What good are you to me? Claire tried to speak, her voice hoarse. David, I just need time. The doctor said if I stay on the treatment. He cut her off with a sharp laugh. Treatment? Do you think I'm made of money? You've already drained me dry. Pills, doctor visits, special food. It's never ending. You're nothing but a burden. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm your wife. You were my wife when you had something to offer, he said coldly. He strode into the bedroom, and Claire heard the closet doors slam. Moments later, he returned with a black trash bag. He began yanking her clothes from hangers, shoving them inside without care. A sweater she'd knitted by hand, a scarf her late mother had given her. He stuffed them in like rags. David, please, Claire whispered, trying to stand but falling back on the couch. Don't do this. I have nowhere to go. You have everywhere to go, he sneered, tying the bag shut and tossing it at her feet. The street is wide open. Her hands trembled as she touched the bag, as if it burned. Then David pulled a crumpled bill from his wallet and held it out between two fingers. Here, $12. More than you deserve. Claire stared at it, stunned. $12. Take it, he snapped, shoving it into her hand. Consider it your inheritance for wasting my life. Now get out. The words cut deeper than knives. Her legs felt like they weighed 100 pounds, but she stood. David opened the front door and gestured mockingly, bowing like an usher. After you, my lady, he said with cruel sarcasm. Time for you to leave my house. She staggered forward, dragging the trash bag. The cool air hit her face like ice. She turned back, once hoping to see a flicker of remorse in his eyes. Instead, he smirked. Good riddance. And he slammed the door. The sound echoed through the quiet street. Neighbors who had once waved at her in the mornings now stood at their windows peeking through blinds. Mrs. Green from across the street whispered to her husband. The Parker boys, who had once mowed her lawn for extra cash, snickered from their porch. David stepped outside, arms folded, his voice loud enough for the neighborhood to hear. Don't pity her. She's unstable. A gold digger who drained me of every penny. Always crying, always needing something. I'm finally free. Claire gasped. David, why are you saying that? But he ignored her, raising his voice so everyone would hear. You all thought she was a saint. She's not. She used me. She used my kindness until I had nothing left. Now she's playing the victim. The neighbors whispered, their eyes turning cold. Once friendly faces looked at her with suspicion, some with disgust. Poor David, Mrs. Green said. No wonder he looks so stressed. Claire felt her knees weaken. It's not true, she tried to say, but her voice cracked, lost in the cold wind. David leaned closer, hissing so only she could hear. See? Nobody cares. They'll all believe me. You're nothing now. Her vision blurred. Her own husband, the man who had once held her hand through sleepless nights, had destroyed her with a smile. Claire dragged the trash bag down the driveway. Each step felt like her body would collapse. The bag ripped slightly, spilling a sweater onto the sidewalk. She bent down to grab it, her fingers shaking. Behind her, laughter echoed. She froze. Through the open window of her old living room, she heard another voice. A woman's voice. Jessica. Claire had seen her before. A younger woman with bright lipstick and flashy clothes. She had assumed Jessica was just a friend from David's office. But now, hearing her laughter in Claire's home, she knew the truth. Jessica's voice dripped with cruelty. Why did you waste so much time on her? She's sick, David. She's dying anyway. Why waste money on her? Claire's breath caught. David chuckled, his tone dripping with arrogance. Don't worry. She'll crawl away and never come back. She's too weak to fight. Jessica laughed again. You're ruthless. I'm practical, David said. I don't throw money at dead weight. Claire pressed her hand to her mouth, choking back a sob. Her heart broke not just from his betrayal, but from knowing he had already replaced her. Mocking her from inside the house she had called home. She stumbled down the street, clutching the trash bag and the crumpled $12. Every step was heavier than the last. The whispers of the neighbors followed her like shadows. Finally, at the edge of the block, she collapsed on a bench. The cold wood pressed against her back. As her chest heaved with shallow breaths, she hugged the trash bag to her chest like it was the only thing she had left in the world. Her tears blurred the streetlights. What do I do now? She whispered. A man's voice answered softly. Are you all right, ma'am? She looked up. A stranger, middle-aged, with kind eyes, stood nearby. He carried a paper bag of groceries. Claire tried to hide her tears. I don't know where to go. He hesitated, then sat on the far edge of the bench, giving her space. It's cold tonight. You can't stay out here. Her grip tightened on the trash bag. I have $12. His eyes softened. Then maybe tonight you'll have 13. Here. He reached into his coat pocket and handed her a crumpled dollar. Claire stared at it, stunned. Don't give up, the man said gently. Sometimes the ones thrown away are the ones life has bigger plans for. His words planted a tiny spark in the ashes of her heart. For the first time that night, Claire didn't feel completely invisible. And though she didn't know it yet, her story was only beginning. The stranger's dollar crinkled in Claire's palm as if it carried more weight than all 12 David had tossed at her. She tried to thank him, but her voice cracked. You don't owe me anything, she whispered. I don't, the man said softly. But kindness doesn't keep score. He stood, gave her a nod, and walked away into the night, leaving Claire clutching a trash bag, $13 and a broken heart. The cold bit through her sweater as she sat on that bench. She thought of turning back, of begging David to let her inside just for the night. But then she remembered his smirk, Jessica's laugh, and the words, she's dying anyway. She couldn't go back. Her legs trembled as she rose, dragging the trash bag behind her. She walked until her feet blistered, until the streetlights blurred together, until her body begged to collapse. At the corner store, she stopped. Inside, The clerk barely looked at her as she counted her crumpled bills. 1 cup noodles. 1 small bottle of water, she whispered. The clerk slid them across the counter without a word. Claire sat on the curb outside, pouring boiling water from the shop's dispenser into the cup. She ate slowly, the noodles sticking in her throat. She had shared dinners with David at polished tables, laughed with him over wine. Now she sat alone on a dirty curb, chewing noodles like they were ashes. The night dragged. Claire tried to sleep on the bench again, clutching the trash bag to her chest. But whispers pierced the dark. "Isn't that Claire Hayes?" someone muttered as they passed. "Yes." David said she went crazy, spent all his money. She looked sick, pathetic. Claire squeezed her eyes shut. Each word cut deeper. Once she had been respected. Once she had belonged. Now she was nothing more than gossip in the dark. By morning her body ached. She dragged herself to the bus stop, her hands numb from cold. Group of teenagers eyed her, whispering and laughing. "Look at her bag," one boy sneered. "That's all she's got." Another smirked. "Bet her husband kicked her out." "My dad said she was a leech." Claire's cheeks burned. She wanted to scream that it wasn't true, but the words stuck in her throat. The bus arrived. She stepped on, fumbling her last crumpled dollar. The driver looked at her, clothes, her trash bag, her trembling hands. He sighed. "Just sit down, lady. Don't hold up the line." She sat near the back, curling into herself. The bus rumbled past the very street she once called home. She caught a glimpse of her house, the curtains she had chosen, the porch she had swept every week. And then she saw her, Jessica, standing in the doorway wearing Claire's robe, laughing as David kissed her cheek. Claire's chest tightened until she could hardly breathe. She turned away, tears spilling. The bus pulled her farther and farther from the life she had built. By midday, she reached the downtown shelter. The smell of stale coffee and disinfectant filled the air. The receptionist barely glanced up. "Name?" "Claire Hayes," she whispered. "Hayes." The woman frowned, typing into her computer. "Funny. Someone called earlier," said. Claire Hayes was unstable. "We don't take risks here. No beds." Claire's mouth dropped. "That's not true. Please, I just need a place to rest." The woman's tone hardened. "Try another shelter. Next." Claire stumbled back. Her husband hadn't just thrown her out. He had poisoned her name even. Here. Hours later, she found herself wandering aimlessly, her body growing weaker with every step. She sank onto another bench, this one near the park. Children played nearby, their laughter sharp in her ears. A mother pulled her child closer, whispering, "Stay away, sweetheart. She's not well." Claire bowed her head. She felt like an outcast, a ghost drifting through a world that no longer wanted her. As the sun dipped, her strength finally gave out. She sank onto the cold ground, clutching the trash bag like a lifeline. Her thoughts spun. Maybe David was right. Maybe I am worthless. Maybe I am a burden. Her eyes blurred. Then a voice. "Ma'am." "Claire Hayes," she whispered. "Hayes." The woman frowned, typing into her computer. "Funny. Someone called earlier," said. Claire Hayes was unstable. "We don't take risks here. No beds." Claire's mouth dropped. "That's not true. Please, I just need a place to rest." The woman's tone hardened. "Try another shelter. Next." Claire stumbled back. Her husband hadn't just thrown her out. He had poisoned her name even. Here. Hours later, she found herself wandering aimlessly, her body growing weaker with every step. She sank onto another bench, this one near the park. Children played nearby, their laughter sharp in her ears. A mother pulled her child closer, whispering, "Stay away, sweetheart. She's not well." Claire bowed her head. She felt like an outcast, a ghost drifting through a world that no longer wanted her. As the sun dipped, her strength finally gave out. She sank onto the cold ground, clutching the trash bag like a lifeline. Her thoughts spun. Maybe David was right. Maybe I am worthless. Maybe I am a burden. Her eyes blurred. Then a voice. Ma'am. She blinked. A young woman stood in front of her, holding a bag from the bakery down the street. Her eyes were kind, not mocking. You look like you need this more than me, the girl said, offering a wrapped sandwich. Claire hesitated. I can't. Take it, the girl insisted. My grandma always said, one day you give, one day you receive. Claire's hands shook as she accepted the food. Tears spilled silently down her cheeks. Thank you. The girl smiled gently. Don't give up. Tomorrow can still change. She walked away, her footsteps light, leaving Claire holding not just a sandwich, but a flicker of hope. That night, under the streetlight, Claire ate slowly, each bite warming her chest. David had humiliated her. Jessica had mocked her. The neighbors had turned their backs. But two strangers, two simple acts of kindness, had reminded her she was still human. She curled up on the bench, whispering to herself, I will not die here. I don't know how, but I will not die here. The stars blurred overhead. The city hummed around her. And in that quiet moment, as her tears dried, something shifted. She didn't know it yet, but this was the night the broken woman with $12 and a trash bag would begin to rise. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love for you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button. Through our stories, we build hope and give a future to children and women who have been abused all over the world. Motivate us by subscribing and turning on your notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. Also, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and how did this story speak to you? The boarding house smelled of bleach, old onions, and loneliness. Paint peeled from the porch, and the brass number over the door hung crooked. Claire stood with her trash bag, clutching it like a lifeline. A man in a coffee-stained shirt opened the door. His eyes swept over her thin frame and tired face. You the one who called? He asked. Yes, Claire whispered. Cash only. 1 week at a time. No noise. No complaints. Shared bathroom. I understand. She opened her trembling hand, showing wrinkled bills and coins. He took them without blinking. Name's Mr. Doyle. Room 3. Key sticks, so jiggle it. The room was small, barely big enough for a squeaky bed and a dresser missing a drawer. The window looked out on an alley lined with trash cans. She sat on the bed. The springs cried under her weight. She pulled the trash bag onto her lap and hugged her mother's old sweater to her chest. It was all she had left. The next morning, she walked down Oak Street and stopped in front of a diner with a fading help wanted sign. Her body ached, but she pushed inside. A woman behind the counter, her hair in a bun, eyed Claire's shaking hands. You hiring? Claire asked. What can you do? Anything. Wipe tables, wash dishes, ring up orders. You look tired. I am, Claire admitted. But I can work. The woman hesitated, then sighed. Name's Linda. Dishes. For hours. Daily pay. Don't faint on me. Claire nodded. The dish room was hot and wet. Plates clattered. Steam stung her skin, and her arms burned from the weight of racks. A line cook laughed when she dropped a pan. New hands, he said, smirking. She bit her lip and kept going. When Linda handed her cash at the end of the shift, Claire clutched it tightly. Thank you. See you tomorrow, Linda said. If you make it. On her way back, Claire spotted Michelle, her old neighbor, outside a boutique. Michelle's face stiffened. Oh, Claire, she said too brightly. How are you? I'm getting by, Claire murmured. Michelle's eyes darted to Claire's worn shoes and sweater. David said you had issues. Claire's jaw tightened. David said a lot, right? Well, take care. Michelle turned quickly, leaving behind the faint scent of perfume and pity. 2 days later, Claire went to refill her prescription. The pharmacist frowned. Your policy is closed. Beneficiary cashed it out. Her stomach dropped. Beneficiary? Your spouse, he said gently. Her hands trembled. David. She walked outside in a fog, called the insurer from a payphone with coins she couldn't spare. Yes, cashed out, the cheerful voice confirmed. Issued to David Hayes. Anything else I can help you with? Claire hung up, rage trembling through her bones. At a pawn shop window she stopped. The sign read, "We buy gold." Her mother's locket flashed. In her memory, she pushed inside. "Do you keep records of sales?" she asked the bored man behind the counter. 7 years. You selling? I'm asking. Locket. Oval. Engraved with an E. He typed slowly, then nodded. 2 months ago. Brought in by David Hayes. Sold for 400. Claire's throat closed. Do you still have it? No. Melted after 30 days. She staggered out, clutching the receipt he had printed for her, as if holding proof of betrayal was better than nothing. She kept working at the diner, her body frail but her pride forcing her to show up. The gossip followed her everywhere. That's her, whispered 2 women in a booth. She drained him. Claire poured their water calmly. Anything else? They shook their heads quickly. At night, she wrote in her small notebook. What I know, he stole my insurance. He pawned my jewelry. He called me worthless. She pressed the pen hard until the paper tore. One evening, wandering the streets after work, she found herself outside a low brick building with a hand-painted sign, Maple Community Center. A flyer on the door read, "Free clinic today." Inside, folding tables held nurses and volunteers. A woman smiled kindly. Need a checkup? Claire hesitated, then nodded. A nurse took her blood pressure and frowned. You need a doctor. And food. I can't afford. Sit. A man's voice interrupted. She looked up. A tall man in his late 50s. Hair graying at the temples. Blue sweater. Steady eyes. Thomas Avery, he said, offering his hand. I run the center. Claire, she whispered, shaking it. You look like you're holding on by threads, he said gently. Let me help. Food box today. Clinic. Appointment next week. No arguments. She shook her head. I can't pay. We'll figure that later. He poured her a glass of water. Drink. Slowly. Her hands shook as she lifted it. He watched quietly, not pitying, just present. What did you do before all this? He asked. I worked as a receptionist. Kept books. Organized schedules. He nodded thoughtfully. We need someone to clean up our books. Receipts everywhere. I'll pay you something small. Can you do that? Claire blinked. You don't even know me. I know resilience when I see it, he said. Besides, if you're terrible, I'll fire you kindly. She laughed weakly, the first real laugh in weeks. All right, I'll try. The community center office was cluttered. Receipts piled in boxes, ledgers half-filled. Claire sat down, rolled up her sleeves, and began. Slowly, she created order from the mess, columns, rows, totals. Thomas watched. Where did you learn that? My mother. She always said chaos is just a pile of small things hiding from order. She was right, he said. As they sorted donations, a box tipped. Out slid a folder, thick with documents. The tab read, Properties. Claire froze. The handwriting on the cover, David's. Her stomach churned. She opened it. Inside were purchase agreements, deeds, emails, all tied to one name, Jessica Monroe. Properties, business shares, all under Jessica's trust. Notes scrawled in David's hand. Title under. J. Keep clean. Her chest tightened. He put everything in her name. Thomas leaned closer. Without spousal consent? That's fraud. Claire's voice broke. He erased me. He took my mother's things, my insurance, and now my future. Thomas put a hand on the folder. He left a trail, and trails can burn him. The next day, Thomas introduced her to Ruth, a lawyer from the legal clinic. Ruth scanned the documents carefully. Your husband tried to disappear you on paper, Ruth said. He's sloppy. These signatures aren't yours. We'll file a notice. If he tries to sell again, it will flag. If he moved money, will make noise. Claire swallowed. I thought I had nothing. You have facts, Ruth said firmly. And people who believe you. That night, Thomas walked her to the door. Claire, listen to me. She met his steady gaze. You've got more power in your hands than you realize, he said. Not because of money, because of truth. And David. Yes, she whispered. He's not as untouchable as he thinks. The words sank into her bones like warmth in winter. Back in her tiny room, Claire wrote in her notebook, I am not done. She underlined it twice. For the first time since David threw her into the street with $12 and a trash bag, she believed it. The first morning Claire sat behind the desk at Maple Community Center. The ledger looked like a battlefield. Numbers marched out of order, receipts stuffed between pages like fallen soldiers. Thomas stood nearby with a cup of coffee. Take your time, he said. Claire shook her head. No, I can do this. And she did. Within an hour, she had organized a month's worth of entries. Within 2, she had balanced the books enough for Thomas to breathe easier. He leaned against the doorframe, watching. Do you know how many volunteers I've had who couldn't make sense of that mess in a week? You've got something, Claire. Sharp eyes, a steady hand. I used to keep books for a dentist, she said, still writing. It's just habit. Habit, my foot, he said. You're the sharpest woman everyone underestimated. The words warmed her more than the coffee. That evening, Thomas introduced her to his nephew Jacob. He was tall, awkward in his suit jacket, with the restless energy of 22. Jacob's a tech whiz, Thomas explained. He'll help you with the modern side of business. Online, records, spreadsheets, all that. Jacob smiled shyly. I'll try not to make it boring. Claire laughed. After drowning in receipts, boring might be nice. From that night on, the 3 of them worked side by side. Thomas taught her about leverage, interest rates, and property deeds. Jacob showed her how to track expenses with software, how to scan documents, how to set alerts on accounts. Slowly, Claire began to feel something she hadn't felt in months. Control. Her health started to improve with regular clinic visits. Food boxes gave her strength. At the diner, Linda noticed the change. You look stronger, Linda said one night. Claire smiled faintly. I feel stronger. Don't forget where you came from, Linda warned. I won't, Claire said. But I'm not staying there either. By spring, Claire had saved enough from the diner, the community center, and a small grant. Thomas helped her apply for. Jacob sat with her spreadsheets glowing on the old desktop. Computer. You've got enough for a down payment, Jacob said. Not big, but enough. Claire stared at the screen. On what? Small rental property. 2 units. Fix it up. Rent it out. Her chest tightened. Me? Buy a property. Thomas put a hand on her shoulder. Yes, you. David's not the only one who gets to hold deeds. The building was ugly. Peeling paint, cracked windows, weeds taller than Claire herself. But when she signed the papers and held the keys, her hands shook. I did it, she whispered. You did, Thomas said. Now let's make it shine. It wasn't easy. She spent nights scraping, painting, fixing. Jacob helped with repairs, YouTube, tutorials open on his phone. Thomas handled contractors, making sure no one cheated her. When the first tenants moved in, paying cash for rent, Claire stared at the money as though it were a miracle. You turned a ruin into income, Thomas said. That's what rising looks like. Her chest swelled. Then let's do it again. While Claire built her quiet empire, David and Jessica flaunted theirs. Photos of their vacations appeared on social media. Jessica dripped with jewelry, posting selfies. In restaurants where the bill could pay a week's rent for Claire's tenants. David wore tailored suits, shaking hands at clubs, smirking when people asked about Claire. She's nothing, he told anyone who would listen. She's sick, unstable, broke. I gave her more than she deserved. Jessica laughed at his side. Poor thing probably eats noodles in some basement. But cracks began to form. Jessica's spending spiraled. Creditors called. David lost a contract at work when whispers of fraud surfaced. His boss, tired of his arrogance, told him to clean out his desk. At night, Jessica screamed about bills. David screamed back. Their mansion of lies was starting to shake. Meanwhile, Claire flipped her first property for a profit. Then another. Each success added weight to her confidence. Her notebook filled with plans, addresses, dates, goals. One evening, Jacob sat across from her, grinning. "Do you realize your net worth now?" "No," she said honestly. $250,000, Jacob said, eyes wide. "From nothing. From $12. Claire covered her mouth, stunned. Tears threatened, but she blinked them back. "Don't cry," Thomas teased. "Smile. You've earned it." "I don't even recognize myself anymore," she whispered. "Good," Thomas said. "That's the point." Months passed. Claire's health continued to improve. She bought clothes that fit, cut her hair, walked taller. People who had once crossed the street to avoid her now whispered in surprise when they saw her in grocery stores or banks. "Is that Claire Hayes?" they asked. "She looks different." She ignored them. She had no time for gossip anymore. Then came the opportunity that changed everything. A mansion on the edge of town. Foreclosed, abandoned, worth $750,000. David had once bragged about wanting it, calling it the house that proves you've made it. When Jacob showed Claire the listing, her breath caught. "That house," she whispered. "That house," Jacob confirmed. "It's a mess, but you can afford it." Barely. Her hand trembled as she signed the offer. When the bank accepted, she closed her eyes and smiled. Thomas poured champagne at the community center that night. "To Claire," he said, raising his glass. "From $12 and a trash bag to this." Everyone cheered. Claire smiled, but her mind was already racing. She pictured David's face if he ever saw her walking through those doors. Weeks later, she hosted a small dinner at the mansion, still half empty and smelling of new paint. Jacob and Thomas sat at the table with her, laughter echoing in rooms once filled with silence. As plates were cleared, Claire leaned forward, her voice low, steady. "He threw me out with $12, she said. "I'll make him knock on my door for work one day. And when he does, I'll decide his fate." Thomas studied her face, then nodded slowly. Jacob's grin was sharp. "I can't wait." The fire in Claire's eyes burned brighter than the chandelier above them. She was no longer the woman with a trash bag. She was a woman with power, patience, and a plan. And the man who had cast her out would soon learn just how far she had risen from ruins. The mansion glowed under the afternoon sun. Marble floors polished like mirrors, chandeliers, sparkling, tall windows pouring light into the rooms. Staff moved quietly, fixing curtains, dusting corners, arranging flowers for a reception that would take place later in the week. From the side entrance, a man entered with a staffing agency rep. His shoes scuffed against the tile, his blazer secondhand, his shoulders hunched. David Hayes had once strutted through homes like this as if he owned them. Now he followed behind like a shadow. "Custodial," the agency rep said, handing Monica Reed a clipboard. "Weekly timesheets. Here's his badge." Monica, estate manager with sharp eyes and a clipped voice, looked David up and down. "Follow me." David cleared his throat. "Yes, ma'am." She stopped at a locker in the service hall, handed him a folded uniform. "Black pants, gray polo. Shoes are soft soles only. Start with the East Hall. Mop, polish, dust. Supplies are labeled. If you break something, you report it. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am," David said quickly. "You'll answer to me. Do the work, keep your head down, and there won't be problems." He nodded. Minutes later, David mopped the east hallway. His movements were stiff, unused to the work. He muttered under his breath, Wrong partners, bad luck. That's all it was. Just bad luck. The mop squeaked against the marble. Sweat gathered at his hairline. Then he heard voices. Calm, clear, confident voices. Paint swatches here, Thomas Avery said. Budget adjustments approved, Jacob added. And then a voice that stopped David mid-motion. Good morning, Claire said. David froze. His head lifted slowly. She stood in the foyer, tailored suit sharp against the light, hair tied back neatly. A leather folio rested in her hand. She looked powerful, steady. Oh, Claire, David whispered, his throat dry. She didn't blink. No, Mr. Hayes. To you, it's Ms. Bennett, the owner. The mop slipped and clattered into the bucket. Water splashed across the marble. You, David stammered. You own this. I do, Claire said coolly. Bought it under Bennett Holdings. Jacob smirked from the stairs. Funny, isn't it? Life puts people exactly where they belong. Thomas said nothing, only watched with eyes that saw everything. David's mouth opened, closed. This can't be. You can't. Claire cut him off, voice firm. I can. I did. And if you want this job, you'll remember to address me properly. Monica returned with her clipboard. Problem? No problem, Claire said smoothly. Mr. Hayes was just adjusting to his role. David's face flushed. Yes, Ms. Bennett. Good, Claire said. She turned to Jacob, who handed her a clear garment bag. She held it out. You threw me out with a trash bag. Today I give you one. The difference? This one comes with a paycheck. Staff nearby gasped softly. A gardener exchanged glances with the housekeeper. David swallowed, shame burning his throat. Claire, Ms. Bennett, please. Don't humiliate me. You humiliated yourself, Claire replied coldly. I'm only giving you what you earned. Later, while scrubbing the powder room floor, David muttered curses under his breath. He didn't hear her come in until her heels clicked against the tile. Mr. Hayes, Claire said evenly. He shot up, rag in hand. Yes, Ms. Bennett. You'll be on evening shifts starting next week. You'll stay in the room over the garage. Rent comes out of your paycheck. David blinked. Live here? In the garage? As staff, she clarified. You won't enter the main house without orders. You won't speak to me outside of work. Is that clear? He licked his lips. Claire, her hand lifted. Ms. Bennett. Ms. Bennett, he said quickly. His voice cracked. Please, I made mistakes. Give me another chance. Her eyes cut through him. You called me worthless. You left me to die. And now, you'll live. Here, not as my husband, not even as a guest, but as a janitor. Because this is all the respect a man like you deserves. David's knees weakened. I'm sorry, he whispered. You're sorry you fell, Claire said. Not sorry you pushed. In the staff lounge, two cleaners whispered as David entered. That's her ex-husband. No way. It's true. He threw her out with $12. Now he scrubs her floors. David sat silently, paper cup shaking in his hands. Their whispers cut deeper than knives. Days passed. Each shift wore him thinner. Once, Jacob passed him in the hall. There's a scuff on the second landing, Jacob said. Yes, David muttered. Jacob stopped, his voice sharp. Strange, isn't it? The man who mocked my aunt now takes orders to polish her floors. David stared at the ground. Friday afternoon, Monica handed him his paycheck. Clean week. Keep it that way. David nodded, clutching the envelope like a starving man holding bread. The next week, Claire entered the foyer while he polished brass. She paused, watching. He finally spoke. Why? Why hire me? You could have refused. You could have thrown me out. She studied him. Because survival isn't revenge. It's growth. I wanted to see if I could stand in front of you and not shake. I can. That's victory enough. David's voice cracked. I had bad luck. Jessica. She left me. Creditors my job. Bad luck. Claire repeated, her tone sharp. You stole my insurance. You pawned my mother's locket. You called me dead weight. That's not bad luck, David. That's betrayal. He flinched. I was wrong. I see it now. No, Claire said. You see me now. Stronger. And that's what scares you. He dropped to his knees, desperation spilling out. Please, Claire. Ms. Bennett, just one chance. I'll make it right. I'll be better. Let me prove it. Claire stepped closer, her eyes like ice. You proved who you were the day you shoved me out with $12 and a trash bag, she said. And today you stand here wearing a uniform, carrying a mop, begging me for mercy. That's justice. His hands shook. Claire, I loved you once. Love doesn't abandon, Claire snapped. Love doesn't laugh with a mistress while a wife weeps. On the street, tears filled his eyes. I lost everything. You didn't lose it, Claire corrected coldly. You threw it away. The silence stretched. Staff in the corridor had stopped moving, listening. The humiliation was complete. Claire leaned in, her final words deliberate. You gave me $12 to start over, David. I turned it into $750,000. Greed devours itself. Betrayal rots its own house. And today you clean floors in the home you once mocked me for never owning. The words hit harder than any slap. David lowered his head, broken. He picked up the rag and returned to polishing. That evening, Claire sat in the mansion's library with Thomas and Jacob. The fire crackled. Jacob smirked. The look on his face was priceless. Claire shook her head. It's not about his face. It's about mine. I finally see myself again. Thomas raised his cup of tea. To patience, to resilience, to justice. They clinked glasses. And in the garage room, David sat on a narrow bed, staring at his uniform. The man who once shoved her out with a trash bag now carried one for her house. Betrayal may win in the moment, but patience and resilience rewrite the ending. Never underestimate the one you trample.